Thanks, Jim. So it was going great, tremendous prayer. And then one of the goals that I was going to try and do is to get in the Capitol today to pray. I'm a former member. I have lifetime privileges to go in, usually on the floor. I have lifetime privileges. I went into the Capitol. I was able to get in, and I found out later, I mean, there's nobody in there. It's members, a few staffers. They don't even allow all the members on the floor at any given time. Very few members were on the floor. Other members were up sitting in the gallery. And so I wanted to sit in the gallery. I went upstairs so that I could pray, just go in the chamber and pray. And I was told by the Capitol Police, no, you can't go in. And there's just members that are up there, and that's what was going on. And so I went over to Kevin McCarthy's office. He is the leader of the Republican minority. So I went over to Kevin McCarthy's office. He walked by me to go into his office. I talked to his staff to see if I could get in, if, you know, as a special guest, I could get in up in the gallery. So I was waiting for all of that. While I was waiting to get clearance, a lot of members were walking by. So I was talking to members, and then I was told, no, you can't get in the gallery. So I asked if I could have the code to get into the prayer room. There's a George Washington prayer chapel. Some of you may have been in it. And it's right off the rotunda of the Capitol. It's right next to Nancy Pelosi's office. So I wanted to go over to the prayer chapel and pray. And so that's what I did. I walked over to the prayer chapel, and someone in the chaplain's office let me in. And I was in there praying, and I got word that I was going to be allowed to be in a meeting with Secretary of State Pompeo this afternoon at 3 o'clock over at the State Department. So I was going to leave. I was praying in the chapel, Lord, should I stay here in the Capitol? Should I leave and try and go join this meeting with Secretary of State Pompeo? Ultimately, I decided that I would leave. What I didn't know is that within a couple of minutes after I left the prayer chapel and I walked through the rotunda, just a couple of minutes later, that's when the Capitol was breached and the unauthorized people came into the chamber. And you may have seen some of the footage on TV. Some of these people had like those shields like they used in Minneapolis, St. Paul, where they had like official gear on their heads with gas masks, and they had like police shields and all that. That's what these people had. They were professional agitators. I mean, that's what they were. They were professional agitators, and they got over by the House chamber. Well, I didn't know that that was going on. I was walking through the rotunda just before these people came in the rotunda, and I left, and I was going to go down and leave the building to go see Secretary of State Pompeo. So I was going out. They told me I couldn't get out through the Capitol, and so I'd have to go through the office buildings. So I went to the office buildings. On my way over there, I was told the office buildings were locked down. And while I was down in the basement part, we called the subway, Nancy Pelosi came with her huge entourage, and I was on this narrow sidewalk thing underneath the bowels of the Capitol, and I just plastered my body against the wall. Thank God I had a mask on, so she didn't know who I was. So Speaker Pelosi walked right by me with a whole entourage. So then I turned and I thought, you know, I heard that, you know, it was locked down, that there were intruders. And so I thought, I'm going back to the chapel to pray. If I can't get out into the House buildings, and if I can't get out of the Capitol, I'm just going to go pray back in the prayer chapel. So I walked back to the prayer chapel, got on the elevator, went upstairs. By the time I got upstairs, all you saw were police, and they were all in battle gear inside the Capitol. I mean, I served there. I've never seen that before. And so I was there wearing my, suburban homemaker coat, walking down the hall. And so these cops came up to me and said, you got to get out of here. You got to leave. And so they took me back down into the subway downstairs. Another member was coming over to vote. He didn't know what was going on. And they asked if I could go to his office. So we were actually the lucky ones, because we got to go back to his office in Rayburn. While you might have seen it on TV, there were like 400 members of Congress, the Senate and House members. I mean, we're talking Bernie Sanders. We're talking, senators, House members. They were all shepherded over to room 1100 in the Longworth building. That's a House office building. They kept these members of Congress there locked in a room for 4 hours. Members of Congress were not allowed to leave this House office building room. They couldn't go to their own offices. They couldn't go anywhere. So they were held as captives by the Capitol Hill police. Members of Congress couldn't leave. They've got authority to do about anything, and they were told they couldn't leave. We were up in this one member's Congress's office, the first one, and then he had said to his couple staffers, and it was a former member's wife and myself up in that office, and he said, okay, well, we're going to try and go home because Marianne Bowser, the mayor, said that it was a curfew at 6. We were trying to get out of there before 6 because the curfew was going to come in place in DC. So we went out to try and get out of the Rayburn building. We couldn't get out. We were told by Capitol Hill Police, you can't go anywhere. The whole place is locked down. You can't leave. I'm a former member. I walked around with my badge and I said, I'm a former member. I want to leave. I want to get out of here. No, you can't. Members of Congress came down and contended for me. And the members of Congress were told, no, everybody's supposed to go over to 1100 Longworth. Well, they didn't. Those couple went back to their offices. Well, then what happens? Then we hear from a staffer of one of the members that they're going to go back in and vote tonight. They're going to go back in and vote. And then another staffer told us that the senators were going to withdraw their objections because you know that one House member from a state together with one Senate member of a state both had to object over a state, and then they could have a debate for up to 2 hours regarding that state. Well, so I don't know what's going to happen, but I was with 2 members and they were told that now they're going to go in and vote. So just think of the psychological warfare that just happened. So these members are held in captivity for 4 hours, couldn't leave, couldn't do anything. And now they're told they all have to go and vote. And then they hear the dispiriting news that these Republican senators are likely going to pull their objection. And then we heard from another staffer that President Trump was denied being on Twitter for the next 12 hours while this vote goes on. I was here yesterday. I was here all day today. And for those of you who were on the Zoom call, who were here, you know the kind of people that we were with, the nicest, friendliest, happiest people. It was like a family reunion out there. It was incredible. It was wonderful. And then all of a sudden this happens. And it reminded me of Moscow in 1917 with the Bolsheviks, where there were rabble-rousers who dressed up in the opposition's clothing and had a violent event in the streets. And we saw what happened to Russia. Russia went into 70 years of captivity. I am telling you, I'm not a betting woman, but I would put $1,000 on any table to say, this wasn't the Trump crowd. This didn't look anything like the Trump crowd or the prayer warriors. These were rabble-rousers, paid rabble-rousers, whatever you think of Lynn Wood. He put out a tweet tonight that showed a photo of a guy who was a rabble-rouser in a previous event. And he was one of them who was arrested, who was in the front lines of this thing tonight. I think that's, if the truth ever does come out, I think that's what we're going to find out. So this is a coup, and I'll say it. This is a coup. What you observed today was a coup. I mean, does anybody honestly believe that this young pajama boy running for US Senate in Georgia, who produced Chinese propaganda films for the Chinese, that he was elected senator today? Or this guy who's a pro-abortion loving pastor who is in charge of camp, child's camp, that abused little children? Does anybody think that this cat was elected as senator in Georgia? We're talking Georgia. This was a coup in Georgia with these same phony machines run by Stacey Abrams down there. She's not even elected, but she's running the state with these bought-off phony Republicans down in Georgia. It was a coup so that the Senate was stolen today. And now they want to finish the job. And they want the coup to be done today on January 6th.